Namaste everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host Kushalmehra. All right, today's podcast is about the Israeli Hamas conflict. As you guys know, since the last few days, there has been a great loss of lives that started with the Hamas attacking Israel, and more than 1,000 Israelis, innocent Israeli citizens, have passed away. In response to that, we've seen the Israeli state launching an offensive against Hamas in Gaza. I did not want to do a podcast on this last week because I always like to, it's just a rule I have in my podcast. I wait, I see what's happening, I wait for things to flow, and then eventually, when enough water has flown under the bridge, I decided to talk about it. And I reached out to Catherine and I requested her to come. And as always, Catherine has been very kind and graceful, and she always says yes to me. She never says no. So, Catherine, welcome.
Thank you. Well, look, I never say no because number one, you have a great platform, and I like the way that you approach things. So you're very rational. You don't like to scream and shout. You make valid points. So why would I ever say no? It would be quite silly. And also, we tend to agree. So
Yeah.
it's always fun to talk to friends.
Yeah, I know. But honestly, first of all, on behalf of at least folks in India, to everybody in Israel, condolences about the loss. I have a lot of Jewish friends. Even this time in Canada, when I was there, I met a lot of members of the Jewish community, and it's just been terrible. And I always say this to my Jewish friends: the one community that understands the loss because of terrorism and loss because of violence in general, it is especially the Hindu community of India, because that's one community that has faced a lot of terrorism, and a lot of lives have been lost. So, just on a side note, like, everybody's like, why are Indians talking about Israel so much, and why is the social media space full of Indians talking about, and especially Hindus? They don't like to say Hindus, so they say Indians. They kind of couch it in a politically correct way. They want to say Hindus, they don't want to say Indians, but they say Indians. But I just want to put that record straight, is because we actually understand the pain of the Jewish community. If there's one community on planet Earth that understands the pain of the Jewish community, it is the Hindu community. So before someone tries to, I'll give you the non-politically correct version, the answer, which is the bare bones truth, that only one community understands the pain of the Israelis. It is us. I just wanted to put that to rest, and now we can talk about the issue. So we'll divide this into different sections. So let's start with this. So what has been this relationship between Hamas and the state of Israel? Like, I was hearing, I've been trying to do my research, and I want you to correct me, but it's only my job to ask these questions. That I've tried to hear different versions. Like, I've even heard Yasser Arafat quoting that it was Israel that created Hamas.
Well, look, many things have been. Look, conspiracy theories, I think, come with the territory of geopolitics. People always have an opinion about things. They love to, again, be very conspirational because I think it makes them sound more intelligent than they actually are. And I'm not saying that everything that you see in the media is true. We know that it's not the case. And that a lot of the time you need to dig a bit deeper, and try to get a good sense of what is actually going on, especially when it comes to geopolitics. People tend to have a very myopic view of things, thinking that, if it happens in a particular region, it means that only this region is affected. Usually it is not. There's always a context that needs to be looked at. In the case of Israel, look, Israel is facing an existential threat by the hand of Islamic radicalism, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's the same language, the same threat. All those groups want the annihilation of the state of Israel and all Jews, by extension. So to posit that Israel would be so willing to establish prop aid, a terrorist organization that would literally want the blood of its people, sounds a little bit irrational to me, bordering suicidal. I don't think that as a country, Israel has been suicidal. If anything, it has been a very rational actor on the diplomatic scene, on the political scene. And so, I'm not gonna bother talking about it too much, but no, it's not true. It's not true. Not to say that Israel hasn't played into the divisions within, those various Palestinian groups, Fatah, Hamas, and others. Of course, it has done so, because it was helping and serving its interests. So, but I think that is true for every country. And so I don't think that there's something conspirational or nefarious about this, or even insidious. I think it's just the reality of politics. They were basically, I mean, in my mind, the way I understand it, the state of Israel was trying to find a way out of radicalism, and to try to find actors that they could engage with, I would say, on a not on equal footing, but to try to find someone that did not want to murder everybody, and call it a Monday. So that, I think that was most certainly the angle that was taken. But
What a wrong expectation to have. Please don't kill all of us, right?
pretty much. And I think that in order to do so, Israel was pretty much willing to talk to anybody. Unfortunately, whether Hamas or even, the PLO or other iterations of, I would say, Palestinians' political expression, have proven to be quite genocidal. And so here we are. And people, as usual, are so willing and quick to lay blame at Israel's feet, because it fits the narrative. It plays into very old hate. It's expected. It's easy. It doesn't take a lot of intellectual gymnastics. And people, again, I think it has seeped into our subconscious so deeply that it's almost our default setting. I've heard so many things over the past week, things that I thought I would never hear again. And I'm not just talking about social media; it's even in mainstream media. The inference, the assumptions. This yes, people were massacred. We witnessed almost live a butchery. I mean, the display of violence and hatred against innocent civilians. The world should have condemned unequivocally, and not add a but. But there were many buts. And so people were trying to split hairs. I mean, to the point where I've seen debate on social media. I mean, I wouldn't even call it debates, but just a vomit of hatred, where people were actually arguing, oh, are you sure it was 40 babies? And were they decapitated before they were killed or after? As if it made a difference. And it's just so, I mean, look, of course I'm affected. It is my community. It cuts really, really deep. Also, it echoes for everyone, not just in Israel, but across the Jewish diaspora over time, that we would very much like to forget and put behind us. And also a time that we hoped was gone, in terms of this thirst for Jewish blood, and the desire to not just kill, but kill in such a fashion that it would be so cruel that I don't think I could put words to that kind of display of fury. It's hateful fury. It's a barbarity that, in my mind, should be relegated to medieval times. I think that they would actually put to shame crusaders, and God knows that they were not exactly kind to populations. But to see people view babies, children that are literally an accident of geography, who didn't have time to do anything by anyone's standard, by any faith's standards, to unleash your hate onto innocent souls and be barbaric about it, and to have people to somewhat rationalize or argue about numbers or the fashion in which those babies were killed, is such an insult to the Jewish community, to our humanity as a collective, because it means that certain demographics are deserving of that kind of hatred and treatment, and also the disregard to life, just life. I mean, it doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, look, and I'm going to say it clearly, I really don't care who is committing those abusive, regardless of who you are and what you think you're standing for. The second you attack innocent civilians, and by that I mean willingly, purposefully, There is no excuse for that ever. There could be no rationalization. There could be no way of explaining it away. There could be not, but what about this or what about that? No, it should be a no. End of sentence. No hair splitting. Let's move on. We have to condemn it always and forever. And what shocks me is that when it comes to the Jewish people want to rationalize. They want to lay blame on the victims and say, but what did you expect? Peter Tatchell, who's a very famous and prominent right activist in the UK, and who has done, arguably by many people's standard, a lot of great work, had the nerve, was brazen enough to go on social media and actually, but what did you expect? What did you expect? When you saw the images of women being burned alive, of entire family being shot at and executed, people being kidnapped, a pregnant woman was cut open and left to die with her unborn baby. When we saw the rape, when we saw the women being kidnapped, a Holocaust survivor was kidnapped and she was shot. And someone's reaction, first reaction, almost visceral reaction is, what did you expect? What did you expect? And that for me kind of summarized and encapsulated people's reaction. And when I say people, I don't mean everybody, but enough, too much, to tell you that we have a serious problem. And that problem is, number one, Islamic radicalization, Islamism, and the expression of that hate. And number two, this willingness that people have had in order to assuage, I think, their desire to moral signal and their laziness in trying to actually understand context, to identify with Hamas's narrative and portray it as if it's a call for liberation. That's where we are right now in the UK. We have people who are willing to openly and publicly support an organization, Hamas, that has been proscribed as a terrorist organization in the UK. And unfortunately, the authorities have proven to be incapable. I don't want to say unwilling, because that wouldn't be true. Incapable to deal with. In that, I don't believe that our legislation is robust enough to address the problem, because it's on a ground scale. And people's reaction has been, we can't put everyone in jail. Well, for me, that's not good enough, because we need to do something, because people deserve to be protected. And my main concern is this. Yes, my community is in the line of fire. Yes, we are the first victims. Yes, it starts with us. But history tells you, and I've said it until I'm blue in the face, I'm going to say it again, it never ends with us. And if you look if you look at the context within which that has happened, this attack of Hamas against innocent Israeli citizens, civilians, by the way, so they're not legitimate targets by any standard whatsoever, will not stop there. This is just the manifestation of those people. Hamas's supporters exist everywhere. You've seen it from New York to Paris to London. I mean, in Australia, it's everywhere. Are we serious into thinking that it's just going to stop at the Jewish community and that others will not pay the price? I mean, you remember other events in the UK against the Hindu communities by the hands of, Muslim radicals. You also have had incidents against other ethnic and religious minority across the UK, across the EU, across the Western world. Are we supposed to believe that this is not related? Are we supposed to believe that this is not like a movement against multiculturalism, against people's right to exercise their freedom of religion and free speech? They have hijacked everything that we stand for, from compassion to freedom of religion to free speech to our ability to express ourselves in a democratic discourse, twisted it and turned it against us as weapons. And we just sat there thinking, if I challenge you, if I hold you accountable, I might be called, intolerant. I might be called Islamophobic. And I refuse. It's not like I was, being muzzled before, but I just straight up refuse to justify myself when I challenge hate. The burden of proof is not on me. It's on those people who are claiming Islamophobia. Islamophobia where? We should be scared. I'm not being irrational in my fear of Islamism. I'm being very rational because what I've seen for the past week, what happened last Saturday in Israel, is horrible. There is no, I mean, the last time it did happen, it was under Nazi Germany. That's all I can say. The butchery, the violence, the dehumanization, the glee. People celebrated in Gaza. Celebrated. They paraded our dead. I think that ISIS is quite jealous right now because they think they probably think we didn't go as far, but Hamas did. And we are supposed to think and believe that this is what liberation looks like. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if really we just let out the armies of Hamas and they want to liberate? What does their liberation look like to you? To me, it looks like a genocide. 9 million people in the line of fire. 9 million people. Because when those people are saying free Palestine, which is, by the way, a call for genocide by Hamas, but that people think that, oh, it's a cute little slogan that, resounds, in such a lovely way in the streets of Paris or London or wherever. This is a call for genocide. So where are Israelis supposed to go? Where are the Jews supposed to go? Because really, this is the real questions. What they're calling for is not decolonization, as they call it. Also, colonization would assume that actually we're occupying a land that is not ours. It is ours, by even their own standard and their scriptures. It is ours. So where are we supposed to go? What are they actually calling for? But people don't have the moral integrity to ask themselves those questions. What they're calling for is a genocide. So if people want to stand by and support a genocide, they can go right ahead. But consequences will be dire. History will remember them. This I know. This I know. Because people now forget something. And I think that whoever is listening and people are thinking, oh, but yes, I support Hamas. I think that the Israelis and the Jews are the vilest people on the planet. Well, let me tell you something. We have social media today. So if you think that's a weapon to vomit your hate, yes, it is. And yes, you have a great platform. But also, we are collecting evidence against you. Whatever is being said on social media lives forever. So if people think that it's okay to scream and sing the gas to Jews and they can get away with it, think again. Think again, because Israel will win this war against Hamas. Things will calm down. Peace will happen. We will normalize too with our neighbors. And those who do not agree will need to get out of the way. And I don't mean this in a violent way, but they will need to get out of the way because there is no room for that kind of hatred anymore. Those people will be held accountable.
Yeah. With this gas the Jews was recently uttered outside, if I, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think this was outside the Sydney Opera House, right? When,
Yes.
yeah. So I don't get it. Right? The modus operandi over here was, from what I understand, it starts with around 5,000 rockets that are being launched against Israel. Then there are tons of people that are cutting fences physically, trying to enter Israel. Now, the rockets are a distraction. And then there are people coming in paragliders attacking innocent people who are at a rave party. Now, what did those people do? I don't understand.
They
What
did
did they
nothing.
do?
They
They did
didn't do
nothing.
anything. But no, this is the thing that people don't understand. And we've been saying this for years and years and years, where we're trying to explain that the very charter of Hamas, and I invite people to go and look it up. Actually, it's not so much that it explains, it legislates over genocide. It encourages the death of all Jews. Because the thing that people also don't understand is that they think, oh, it's against Israel. No. Hamas, whenever Hamas addresses the Jewish question, they don't say Israelis. This is Al-Yahud, which means Jew in Arabic. They call us Al-Yahud. So there's a very clear, it's very clear to me that they're not talking about a country. They're talking about
People.
a people, because Jews are, we are an ethno-religion. And so that's what they're referring to. They're not talking about Israelis, because Israelis, you have Arab Israelis,
Yeah.
you have Christians, you have Jews, obviously, but you have many other communities, religious communities within that, as well as the ethnic communities. So Israel is not just this one thing. It's multifaceted. It's a rainbow of people. that live under one flag. And so when they refer to us, it's Al Yahud. So it's very clear that their hatred is directed at the Jews. But in their hatred, they were not exactly, they were not trying to make a difference between people. And unfortunately, they killed their own Jew. I mean, Arab Israelis were killed. So it really goes to show that they are hypocrites. All they want is bloodshed. So they keep saying, "Oh no, it was targeted at the Jews and the Israeli." No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was like whoever was on the land of Israel, you just wanted to get rid of. You didn't even bother, to try to make a difference in between people. You were just after blood, which is insane because they claim to want to free the Palestinian people or the Arab people. Well, you killed them too, so explain. They killed innocent people anyway. But the point is they killed innocent people that had nothing to do with their alleged fight against the Israeli state, against the Jewish people. They killed innocent bystanders in their twisted dynamics. So even they don't have limitations when it comes to murder. They're willing to kill anyone who's in front of them as long as they could just revel in violence. They're happy. It doesn't matter. You could be whatever from wherever. I'm pretty sure that if an alien was to show up tomorrow morning and had the indecency of landing over Jerusalem, they would be a fair target too.
Yeah. What I think, what do you make of this entire argument being made by people that, oh, it's not about all Israelis, as if that makes it normal and justified? Like, even if it is about all Jews, like, what the hell is wrong with you people? Like, imagine if I said this and I flipped this around, and if somebody said this about all Muslims, I'll be the first person to call that bad person out. I'll be like, what a piece of shit. That if you make a comment about all Muslims, I would have a problem with that too. But here it's almost, I mean, I am shocked at the level of Jew hatred that
I'm
is
not.
normalized.
I'm
Like,
not
I'm
because
shocked.
do you know that I'm not, and that's unfortunate. But I've experienced a lot of anti-Semitism in my life. I'm not the only one. Many people have. But some people have fooled themselves into thinking that things got better. I don't think they got better. I think they just got pushed down. And so on the surface, it looked like it was better, but it wasn't, because we never really addressed the root core of anti-Semitism, and it would take a lot of re-education, because again, it's so anchored in people's subconscious. This notion that Jews control the media, Jews control the financial world, Jews control everything. We are those secretive puppet masters. That there's always an agenda, that we are by definition suspicious because we exist and we breathe, and also this notion that because we're such a close-knit community and we do support each other, but because that's part of our, it's not been part of our education, it's part of our culture. We stand together because we understand that if one hurts, the whole body hurts. That's just the way that we are. And rather than celebrate this, because I think it's a beautiful sense of community, that allow people to feel more connected to their neighbors and other people beyond their immediate family, and that it encourages you to stand in solidarity with people when they're hurt, not just within the community but without as well. You would like to think that people would celebrate this and say, can we learn from you guys, because we want a piece of that too, because it's a good idea. And I know that in the Indian community you have a similar sense of togetherness, and together we go through, nobody. Because otherwise it doesn't work. You can't elevate a society if people are very selfish and kind of locked in their own little dynamics, saying, well, I don't care what happens to you. Yes, you should, because whatever happens to anyone within the community means that the community as a whole will not be able to rise above and get better. So everyone has to get better. But anyway, I digress. And so people think that there's this kind of secretive little cabal that is going on, and that we are plotting. But again, that goes
I just
back.
think they're jealous of the Jewish community, Catherine.
I
I'm
don't
being
think
very
it's
honest.
jealousy. I think there's a lot of projection. There's a lot of very old ancestral hate, and also the fact that we never actually dealt also with the core root of the matter, is that I think that the church has a lot of answering to, because of this notion. I know they've dropped it, but it's still there. that we committed as a people deicide, which is a little bit nuts to think that anyone could kill God, but anyway, up until very recently, that was the line. When it comes to certain quarters of Islam, this notion again that the Jews are always the enemy, that because we allegedly broke the covenants, therefore we are hated and haunted, and God, hates us, basically, which is again insane, because even in their scriptures we are clearly named as the chosen people. Not that it makes us any better, but it means that we have been endowed with a certain responsibility towards humanity as witness. That's what it means. It's not like we are special people. We are special in that we agreed to take on the mantle of, I wouldn't say the world, but to shine a light onto humanity and to try to strive for better. That's what we committed to as a community. And people think that, because of it, we think ourselves better. No, we don't. We just hold ourselves to greater standards. That's all it means. That means that we have a greater responsibility, and also that, unfortunately, we have been hated throughout history because of it, which is, again, I think, projection. People don't like it. People don't like that no matter what, we celebrate life, that no matter what, we rise above, that no matter what, we survive. We are persistent in our survival, and we have no intention or desire to go away anytime soon.
Can we talk about the role of Iran? Look, that's
Yes.
your area of expertise. Like, if people don't know, go and check Catherine's bio out. You'll know why I'm asking this question to Catherine. If you don't know, for the ones who have been living under the bridge or underwater for years and have just come up and suddenly, well, if anybody needs to know about Iran, you should go to Catherine. But Catherine, what has been the role of Iran in this?
Well, look, number one, the Islamic Republic of Iran has been aiding and abetting Hamas. Millions of dollars have flown into Hamas's coffers from Tehran. They also help train Hamas's fighters in the sole goal to annihilate the state of Israel. So, which has been the line that the great turban in chief Khamenei has held for decades. Death to Israel, death to America, or vice versa, depending on the day. And Hamas, of course, has been, quite happy and willing to take Tehran's money, because, why not? If they can line up their pockets and in the same time vomit hate, they're happy. It's a good day for them when that happens. But I think that if you look at the immediate geopolitical context, the Islamic Republic of Iran is facing tremendous opposition at home. And even though mainstream media kind of stepped away from covering protest in Iran, and what I think is actually a revolution in the making, but obviously a revolution it's not linear. It doesn't just happen in a day, and it ebbs and flows. So right now it's kind of it has slowed down. It doesn't mean that people are not just as determined. It just means that it's in a different phase of this revolutionary movement. Iran has many problems, political, in terms of the ideology too. They have an ideological crisis, in the sense that despite their best effort, people are not buying into, I would say, the bullshit anymore. Excuse my French. They're not willing. I mean, look, they've lived for decades under the lies of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and they're not biting. They don't want to sacrifice now in order to be called martyrs in the hereafter. They're not interested. They wanna have a good life right now, and just wait and see what happens after. They're not interested in committing suicide to please the Ayatollah anymore. They're not willing to engage into any more suffering or wars, or to be told, what to do, where to go, what to eat, how to eat it, and what to dress, what not to dress. They're just sick of it. They just want freedom. Social media, I think, amplify this. They could see how other people live. They've seen their neighbors improve and better themselves. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE. Things are getting better everywhere, and they kind of stuck in not even limbo. They're stuck in a rut because everything is getting worse, not better. It's not even staying. There's not even a status quo. It's just getting worse every single day. So Iran needed, I think, the regime needed a distraction. it needed something to show up support at home, maybe because Iranians have the propensity to rally around a leadership, whatever that may be, in times of crisis if they are attacked. And I think that was it was witnessed. I think it was characterized by Iranians' decision to rally around Khomeini during Iraq-Iran war. They didn't have a choice. Iranian felt that Iraq violated their national sovereignty, and so they fought back, and that allowed the Islamic Republic to really kind of cement its hold over the country. I do believe that if it wasn't for Saddam Hussein attacking Iran, I think that the Shah would have returned. And I think that, Khomeini and Khamenei would not be here right now, creating and fomenting chaos everywhere that they go. But I guess we'd never know. And so I think what they did was egged on Hamas. Although I do have a theory, because look, yes, the Islamic Republic of Iran is definitely funding Hamas. Yes, Hamas is doing and has committed the crimes that the Islamic Republic of Iran wanted to see happen, and definitely worked really, really hard to see happen over the past decades. But I think that the timing of it all and government official within the region reactions is actually telling another story. And if you allow me, I will tell you my theory. Now, this is not a conspiracy theory because I don't do conspirational. What I do is I look at facts and I try to translate them and make them fit. Because it's never, what you see on the surface is never the whole story. And there's a lot of interest, especially when we talk about the Middle East, because you need to consider energy security, you need to understand access to natural resources, you need to understand, the political end games of superpowers within the region. It's complicated. Now, if you look at the way that Hamas attacked, it was very well planned. It was, to a degree, I would say, that speaks to me of a hidden hand in terms of the attention to details, the level of preparedness. That is not, this is not Hamas's MO. I mean, that was precise, that was calculated, that was timely, that was military scale. So one could say, yes, but the IRGC can do that. Yes, it can. But there's another party that no one is talking about right now that does do that, that has access to very, very good intelligence services. I would say one of, some of the best in the world, that are really good at disinformation and also have an interest in the region. And that is Russia. Hamas and Russia have a long history. And so I'm asking the questions. As we're talking about the Gaza-Israeli war, no one is mentioning Ukraine, which is convenient. Russia has also an IRGC problem in Syria, because when it had to recall the Wagner group, which is, I would say, the equivalent of the IRGC for Iran, but in Russia, Russia had to abandon a lot of the sites that it was controlling, mainly oil wells in Syria. The only reason why Russia was in Syria was to control certain natural resources and exert control over that. And it had to withdraw. And the IRGC took on, this role of minding Syria's natural resources. So Russia lost to the IRGC there. Putin doesn't like to lose to anybody. So in my mind, there's definitely something there whereby it could be that actually the Islamic Republic of Iran was thrown under the bus by people who used to be its its allies, that used to align themselves with the agenda of the Islamic Republic of Iran, but suddenly maybe decided to look elsewhere, thinking that the tide was actually turning because Iran cannot sustain its regime. It cannot. Whether it's now, tomorrow, in 2 years, 5 years, it cannot be sustained. And so it could be that people just jump ship earlier, not wanting to wait for the Ayatollah to fall, thinking, well, you can't do much now. Do we need you? No. You could be a convenient scapegoat and we could accelerate the inevitable and see you fall. But in the meantime, we're just going to make sure that we are positioned in such a way that we benefit from it anyway. So again, this is not, this is still kind of, I'm still working on it, but I think it's an interesting line of thought. If you look at the ways that, for example, America and the UK immediately jump to the aid of Israel. People will say, yes, but every time something happens in Israel, America and the UK jump in. Yes, politically, diplomatically, yes, not militarily. So yes, lines of credits are set in place and things like this. But this is true for many countries who do have a partnership with the US and the UK. But the fact that Biden decided, and I'm talking about President Biden, who doesn't take a decision very quickly ever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he could formulate a decision quickly ever. Decided, day 2 of this conflict, to be sending not just a carrier, but the biggest carrier ever made. That costs money. That costs a lot of money to be moving that around. It's a monster. It's a dinosaur of a carrier. Not in that it's old and broken, isn't it? It's gigantic and it's enormous.
It's probably their biggest carrier
ever. Ever. So, if you consider that Hamas's naval capability is almost non-existent and that Israel's naval capacity is actually quite impressive, you would like to think that, well, why? Israel doesn't need to have the biggest carrier in its waters to protect it. It really doesn't. And I'm not trying to be posturing here. Israel is the military superpower. End of sentence. It's just a reality. And so to aid Israel in terms of, sending ammunition or to make certain material or weapons available to Israel to buy, 100%. Any country going to war will need the support of its friends. But to send a carrier wasn't needed. But okay. But then Biden decided to send another one. So there's 2 now. And then the UK decided to send some more, to send its navy. And so I'm thinking, okay, we don't need all this to be fighting Hamas. Hamas is not that, Gaza is 2 million people, 2.5, something like this. The figure are just a bit kind of, not really clear because it's difficult. I don't recall a census recently. So it's, those are estimations. So say 2.5 million people there. I'm going to say, if you're very, very generous, 10% are actually Hamas fighters, terrorists. Do you need to have all this? No. Israel could very easily take care of it. Very, very easily. Israel has enough men on the ground to do that without even the reserves. They could do it. They could take on Hamas. So why? Why, if there's no, in my mind, there's a bigger play. And I think that America and the UK are trying to calm the harder of someone else, trying to make sure that there's no regional escalation, trying to make sure that whoever is behind this or intends to benefit from this is not. That's how I read things. I may be wrong, but when I see Qatar threatening to cut the gas worldwide and making it public, by the way. So it was, there was a tweet, it was on social media, it was made public. And then a day later, there was a statement made saying, no, it never happened. Well, it did, because we have it, but fine, okay, you never said it. It's okay. So they kind of rescinded on their statement. So that means that something did happen. Someone said something, and they decided to not escalate, because I think that was the plan. I think that Hamas and its master was trying to escalate this conflict into a regional conflict, and that would not play in the favor of the Islamic Republic of Iran. It wouldn't. And you can tell that even the Islamic Republic of Iran is trying to calm things down. There was a statement being made, I think it was yesterday, by the foreign minister, saying, if you stop the bombing of Gaza, we will not activate our proxies, we will not intervene. And then Ayatollah Khamenei came out saying, oh, we consider that America has entered the fray, even though it didn't, but we think it did. This is posturing. This is like 101 regime posturing. So they're really not willing to do anything. They're just saying stuff, hoping that people will be thinking that, oh, you are actually supporting Hamas, you are doing something and claiming responsibility. But really, they're trying to de-escalate. Also, the fact that Hamas came out within hours of the attack against Israel, came out in a statement saying thank you to Iran, which I thought was quite odd, because everyone was reading the subtext. Everyone was assuming that Iran was involved, because obviously it's Hamas and the Islamic Republic has been a patron of Hamas. We know this to be true. And so everyone assumed automatically, well, yes, Iran is involved in this. And so for me to go publicly and make the effort of stating what everyone knew was a little bit over the top, and usually tells you in politics that actually you want people to believe this because you're trying to throw us off and not make us think any further. You don't want people to be thinking too hard about this one. And so you're throwing Iran under the bus. So again, I'm not saying that Iran is not the guilty party. It is. It is by the very narrative that it's holding. What I'm saying this is that I think it's not that simple. And I think that there are other actors at play, and that possibly Iran has been thrown under the bus, which I would love to see, because anything that means the end of this regime, for me, is a good day. Unfortunately, that someone decided to do this at the expense of my people, and that I'm not okay with, and I'm not okay for the regime to fall at the expense of anybody else, for that matter. So I make that clear. But yeah, I think there's more to it than what we know now. But again, it's too early. It's hard to tell. But I think it's quite interesting to see. Even Mahmoud Abbas came out to denounce Hamas. Interesting.
But then how do we make sense of the chaos here? Like, what is the future lie for the entire region? Because we had Saudi Arabia and Israel, starting the peace talks, and many other good things that were happening in the process, and now this incident happens, and it has kind of set the cat amongst the pigeons. So what does it make for the overall diplomatic angle and the
I think nothing changed. I really don't see. I know that people are saying, "Oh my God, we went back, decades, and now it's impossible." No, 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 no. Why? Nothing has changed. What has changed? Realistically speaking, I'm talking in terms of the political language. What has changed? Hamas attacked Israel and committed an act of genocide, crimes against humanity. So everything that we've been saying, that the world has been saying, by the way, because many Arab countries or many political parties and people within the Arab and Islamic world have come out very strongly against Hamas. Countless people have spoken against Hamas, have spoken against the Islamic Republic, have spoken against this genocidal agenda, that ISIS and Al Qaeda and Hamas and Hezbollah have held. So nothing has changed with that. It's just like now today we saw the destruction, and Israel paid a very, very dire price. But nothing changed. When Israel is defending itself and declaring war against Gaza, it's not declaring war against the Palestinians. The political world knows this. The people are being played. So what you hear right now are just, I would say, the noise that people are making because they are being manipulated by ideologues. But political realities on the ground haven't changed one bit. Of course, Saudi Arabia is going to have to come out and defend the Palestinian cause, because you have to remember that Saudi Arabia is home to the two holy mosques, Mecca and Medina. Of course, because the Palestinian lobby has done such a great job linking Islam and the Palestinian cause, saying that if you are a good Muslim, you must absolutely and all the time support the Palestinian cause, and supporting it means calling for the destruction and annihilation of Israel. That's the problem. So of course Saudi Arabia has to. First of all, it will not abandon, its people. Palestinians are Arab, so it's not going to just decide to just dismiss their suffering. And unfortunately, they are suffering because they are being held hostage to Hamas and other organizations such as Hamas. That's the issue. The issue is not about Israel. Israel is just is the excuse. But those ideologues would invent another enemy if that meant oppressing their people. Hamas doesn't want to have a democracy in Gaza or anywhere else for that matter. It doesn't want it. It's happy to be putting blame on Israel, to say that, oh, it's because of Israel that we don't have water. It's because of Israel that we don't have food. It's because of Israel that we don't have electricity. And again, I'm calling bullshit on all of it. Because the only reason why Gaza is in the state that it is in today, it's because Hamas, after receiving unprecedented help from the international community, billions of dollars over the decades, has built nothing. Nothing. They don't have a desalination plant that is working. They didn't develop the infrastructures. They didn't do anything. What have they done? What they've done is spend money on rockets and training people and trying to educate people into being good little terrorists. That's all they've done for the past decades. They have done nothing to help Palestinians make a better life for themselves. Nothing at all. They could have. They chose not to. And for some
they
reason,
dug up the water pipelines and used it to launch rockets or something, right?
Yes. I mean, look, do you know it was a defense minister. The Israeli defense minister came out, and I think it was either Sunday or Monday, saying we're gonna close the all crossing between Israel and Gaza. There's only one crossing anyway, so they decided to close it. I mean, it's war. It's war. Of course, you're going to close any land access. Of course, you're going to close it. And they decided to stop electricity, water, and food. And then people started saying, oh my God, it's an act of genocide. And what about the children? And I'm like, hang on a second. Did you know? Because it is as if Israel is the only, has a tap and close the water and now everybody's going to die. No. People don't understand this because they never listen. And it's just so easy to be blaming Israel, saying that, oh, this is an act of genocide. The murder that we witnessed live on television wasn't one, apparently, because Jews were dying. But cutting the water is an act of genocide. Israel provides only 6% of Gaza's water consumption. 6%. So 6%, I mean, is what? A drop in the bucket? It's not exactly a lot. You're not going to die of thirst tomorrow morning because I stopped 6% of the flow of water coming to you. The rest is coming from either water resources or the desalination plant that they have that is actually not really working. But that's their own fault because they haven't developed it. So what does it tell you? Who's to blame? Who's to blame? Israel is not running the Gaza Strip. It withdrew in 2005. So under international law, number one, it doesn't have to do jack shit if it doesn't want to. You can't force a country to trade with another. You can't do that. I know that people would like to tell us that we have to, but no, we don't actually. Not under international law. Gaza is sovereign. We like it, we don't like it. That's the reality. Number two, again, it's just only 6%. And also, what we tend to forget is that Gaza doesn't exist in a vacuum. Gaza has a border with Egypt. So my question is, and the real question we should be asking, why isn't Egypt helping? And Egypt said this. There was a statement that was issued. Egypt said, yes, we could allow for aid to go through, which is, again, humanitarian law. That's fine. We don't want civilian populations to suffer. So you wanna send aid? Absolutely, do it. But when then they ask about a humanitarian corridor to be set up and for refugees to seek shelter, Egypt turned around and said, but we don't want Islamists to come to our country. So Egypt, which is a neighbor Arab country that has held the pro-Palestinian flag high and loudly for decades, refuses to take on refugees from Gaza because they do not want to be drowned by a flow of Islamists, which is fair enough. I mean, any country should have the right to decide who comes in. I'm not negating this at all, challenging it. But my question is this: if we are not challenging Egypt on its stance towards Gaza, why are we expecting Israel, that suffered the most horrific terror attack in its history, in the world history, I would argue? Why are we asking Israel to welcome in the very people who wants it dead? Explain it to me, because I don't get the reasoning. I don't know if it's out of stupidity or ignorance, but I don't exactly follow. I don't recall anyone asking for Russia to be taking on Ukrainian refugees, or anyone saying that they have a problem with Russia closing its border to anyone else for that matter, because it's a sovereign state and it can do whatever it wants in keeping with international law. Yes?
Yeah,
So
to
why
that
is
they
it that
would say Israel is
becoming
occupying.
like the evil and the demon of this story? Why is that? Why
I
is
don't
that?
know. All I
People
hear
don't,
is they
because there's
say,
a bias towards Jews. There's a
Yeah.
desire to paint the Jews as the source of all evil. So under communism, the Jews were capitalists. With the capitalists, the Jews were communists. And it's always the same dance with this and then with that. And there's nothing that we could do to ever satisfy or appease the world. And so we continue to do what we do, the way we want to do it.
Well, all I hear from the critics of Israel is especially the Pakistanis. The Pakistanis are always up for Palestine. They don't care about the Uyghur Muslims in China because they need
Oh
China
no,
apparently.
no. But also, what is interesting is that as their heart bleeds for Palestinians, they don't actually help them. They don't.
They never do.
I mean, look, some people, for example, have argued, what about those civilians? Many people will die under the bombing, and it's most likely true. I mean, I agree with that statement. Unfortunately, I mean, the IDF is doing everything humanly possible, genuinely, to make sure that civilian populations are nowhere near. But obviously, it's not easy because Hamas is using them as human shields. So you have to take this into account as well. They have a whole series of steps that are being taken to make sure that people are being made aware. Phone calls, leaflets are being dropped. They are dropping also what they call knockout bombs, just to let people know it's coming. Just get out. But Hamas, keeps forcing people to stay, whether threatening them or trying to through indoctrination. Anyway, the point is people die. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. Again, this is not on Israel, this is on Hamas, because Hamas is architecting this situation so that they could flip it, weaponize it, and gain the status of victims and also sympathy on the international scene. And it's working. I mean, it has worked. I think that people are seeing through the lies now, because I think that it was so violent and vile what we saw over the past week that people are starting to wake up and understand that what we were telling them would happen has happened. Because we said this all along. If we stop defending ourselves, if we stop all the measures, the security measures, we will get slaughtered. And now they see. I think they will forget, but now they see. So for now, I think things are clear. And I forgot what I was going with this, but yes, no one has offered to actually evacuate civilians. Not Saudi Arabia, not Jordan, not Lebanon, not
They would
Yemen,
not.
and still those people are manifesting in the street calling for the liberation of Palestine, but mainly the death of all Jews. So it's not really about Palestine, is it? Because no one is offering these people respite or safe passage. They're not interested. They're not interested at all. In Syria, in Jordan, in Lebanon, all those countries have had refugee population, but those people haven't accessed a dual nationality. Why?
But
They're still in
Catherine,
refugee camps. Explain to me why. If you care so much about those people and they're your people, why are you maintaining them in a state of imposed poverty? Why?
But Catherine, if you don't mind me asking this question, I was looking at a recent survey. Only 31% of Palestinians actually support the Hamas. Now, shouldn't somewhere there be also some
Well,
kind of sympathy for the Palestinians, because they didn't sign up for this in the real sense, right?
I agree. But see, we need to be careful with numbers, because I would agree with you if you take Palestinians as a whole, as a group. In Gaza, that's not true. They elected them. 70%. So, and I'm not saying, look, I'm not condemning the whole population, because I don't know. It could be electoral manipulation. It could be many things. It could be that people don't know any better. Not that it's an excuse, but I understand the power of indoctrination. I understand that it's extremely hard, to free yourself from the grip of Islamism. It's very difficult because it's being literally fed to you, since birth. And so how do you reinvent your identity away from hate when that's all you know? I understand that. I get that. So I would say that enlarged Palestinians are not bad people at all. They have aspirations like you and I. They want to live under a democracy. They want freedom, and they deserve it. That's the thing that infuriates me. They deserve to have their freedom. They deserve to have a sovereign state. They deserve all this. But Hamas is really not making the case for them at all. And the problem is because they are not vocal enough in denouncing Hamas. How are we supposed to know? Do you understand? So it's also, you can't just say, well, I'm an innocent bystander in this. No, even if people find themselves locked in dynamics that they haven't created, it doesn't mean that you don't have a responsibility as a human being, as an individual, to speak against those dynamics and do it vehemently and systematically. You have to, because otherwise, for me, silence is complicit. And so when I see silence before the horrors that we have witnessed, and I'm waiting for Palestinians, and some have done. I would be very unfair to say that it's, everyone was silenced. That's not true, but not enough. Not enough. I mean, what I found quite scary is that Mahmoud Abbas did actually the right thing by saying that, and that's, we're talking about Mahmoud Abbas. I mean, the biggest anti-Semite in the world, who only a few months ago questioned the Shoah, saying that, oh, well, actually the Holocaust did not happen. I mean, that's that guy that we're talking about. And this guy, even him, and I'm sure it was very painful for him to do so, disavowed Hamas, saying that Hamas doesn't represent the majority of Palestinians, because even according to his, I mean, I would say the confine of his hatred, even Hamas went too far. So that tells you just how far Hamas went when Mahmoud Abbas is saying, like, I don't want anything to do with that. It actually went pretty far in the scale of, how horrible can I be today? Mahmoud Abbas disavowed Hamas. Not that, because of it's politically correct. It's because I think even he understands that you can't come back from this. It was too public. It was too violent. It was too gleeful. It was too joyous in reveling in the blood of the Jews, that even he can't sign off on it. He can't do it. So that tells you that there's a real problem. But the biggest question is this: is that what do we do next? Hamas will get destroyed. Hamas will be gone. Hamas is over. But what's next? Who do we talk to? Because it's one thing to get rid of one. So we are left with what? Mahmoud Abbas? No. So we need to find a mechanism, and I think that we need to engage regional powers in this. We need to set up a mechanism by which Palestinians, and I'm talking about genuine peace-seeking Palestinians, get a voice, because they're there, they exist, but they're not being given a platform, and we need to do this for them. It's the same thing for Iranians, by the way, because the opposition exists in the diaspora, which is fantastic. It's great. What about Iranians at home? They also need a voice, because you want to make sure that whoever comes to power next, whether it's a president, whether it's it's the Shah, whether, it doesn't really matter. It needs to be through popular consensus, and until you engage people in the democratic exercise and a debate, a discourse, and that they're able to exchange views and ideas and measure what program they they prefer, we don't know, and we could fall into the pit of yet another dictatorship. That's the issue. So you need to engage, local population, not just the diaspora. The diaspora is great, but they don't know what it feels like to have the everyday, experience of living in Iran right now. And so even though they mean well, and of course, they are engaged because they are Iranians and it matters, it's their country and they have a right to dictate what happens next. The mistake that we make often is to not try to build a very strong civil society within those countries, and we rely solely on the diaspora. We've done it with Iraq. It did not work because there was a disconnect. So we need to make sure that all segments of society are being fairly represented and educated in a way that you reach a real popular consensus where all segments feel that they have a say and that they can bring their voice. And I think that the diaspora has a tremendous role to play in that, in the sense that they have lived in the West, they have experienced democracy, and so they're bringing back with them a wealth of experience and lived in. And something that Iranians at home are lacking, because they have for the past decades they lived under an absolute dictatorship. So this marriage of the two would be wonderful, but we need to make sure that it happens. And I think that Palestinians suffer from that. It does. You have Palestinians living outside in the US, in the EU, in the UK, that have experienced democracy, that could come back and actually benefit and play into the political discourse. But if we don't build those platforms, it's not going to happen.
Catherine, I have many questions from the live viewers also, but before that, I want to ask one last question to you. And this is probably something, the tragedy was barbaric, uh, honestly, I stopped. I did not. I could not gather the courage to watch a single video. I will be the first one to admit to it. Like, you know, somebody you also know, Abhijit was reporting regularly about the whole thing. Like, that this is the first time in my life where I was not going and seeing what Abhijit was saying, because he was actually sharing all the details, and it was just heartbreaking to for me and for her. I'm a tough guy, but even I could not like gather the courage to watch the horror. And I know Ben Shapiro also was like, I don't like to share this, but I'm going to share everything, you have to watch it. And I couldn't
Yeah.
watch it, but I've seen a particular range of responses in the West, Catherine, from Harvard to a university I studied in Canada. And
Hmm.
I, for the record, fuck York University. This is me saying, fuck you, York University, for the kind of responses I have seen. It is such a shame that
Yeah.
I studied in that university.
Yeah.
Seriously, fuck all of them. I mean, the kind of response. And this is not Catherine, the Jewish woman, saying this. This is Kushal, the Hindu man, saying this. Fuck all of them. I just want to know how you feel.
It hasn't look the past week. I mean, what you see right now, me trying to keep to keep it together.
I know, I understand, Catherine, and I
It's not me.
appreciate
It's
it.
not. It's trust me. It's it takes a lot of effort to actually keep it together. And it's been one of the hardest time
I
um
know. And I'm
in my life.
sorry. Sorry I made you
No,
come on the
no,
podcast
no.
too.
It's look, you guys have been a tremendous support, so you have nothing to apologize for. Um, and I know because I mean, obviously, we've been talking to one another. I mean, the community really rallied, and it's been. I mean, the love and the support. I mean, it's been incredible, absolutely incredible. But we're hurting tremendously, and I mean, you've seen people. The people broke down on air. I don't have words to describe it. I think it was despair, guilt for not being able to do anything, because your first reaction is, what can I do? I want to do, but you're completely powerless, and it hurts. I think it's the worst thing. As a mother, I was dying inside, absolutely dying inside. I have friends and families in Israel. Many of my friends are actually have been called, and so we're living in fear of losing them too. But we want to make sure that we give them that we're there to support them, because they are fighting for us, and we're going to be fighting for them just as hard. And we need to we can mourn later. We also not a people to we will not be brought down to our knees. So we will mourn in our own time. We will grieve. We will rebuild, and we're going to thrive. And so I decided that I would have a few breakdowns and a few good cries in the bathroom, because this is where you cry until you take a shower and you just let it go. Because our soldiers are not breaking down, and they are not giving up. So we don't have the. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the one that has the luxury of a breakdown, or the luxury of reveling in my sadness. No, Israel deserves better, and so we'll deal with it later. But yes, it hurts, and I think to a depth that I didn't think possible. I think that our souls was not shattered, because you can't shatter it, but wounded. It's a terrible, terrible thing, and it's just for me it was the blood of the innocent. If it had been a legitimate military target, I could tell you that this is the name of the game. It's horrible, but it is the name of the game, and those people have signed up for it. They know what they're risking, and they willing participant in those dynamics. They want to defend their country. Those babies didn't ask for anything. They were not guilty of anything. Those women and children, those old, elderly people, a Holocaust survivor. I think that one cut me really, really deep. To think that someone who survived the horrors of the Shoah could be struck down again, but that same hatred, different day, different face. Yeah, I don't think I have the bandwidth right now to forgive, and I don't want to.
And you
I
should
don't.
not. And
I
you
don't
should
want
not.
to. And I made myself watch every single piece of footage, not because I'm sadistic, but because I want to bear witness of my people's pain, and I want to make sure that when I speak of it, I could convey the horror. And so I made myself watch because so many did and they didn't want to and they didn't have to, and it should have never happened. And I want the world to watch it too. And shame on anyone who is actually challenging our witnesses' account, challenging the horrors that have happened, saying, no, it's a manipulation, no, it's a fake picture, no, it's a this, no, it's shame on you. To
Yeah.
ask other people who suffered so tremendously under the hands of terror, by the hands of terror, to be asking to justify ourselves because you have some kind of a sick voyeurism, shame on you. Despicable.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a few questions, but I want to start with this question because I really wanted to know this. Like, any thoughts on China's statement on the Palestine issue? What did you make of them?
I don't, you know, I kind of like limited my study to the MENA region. So I haven't, I mean, I've looked as far as Russia, but I did not compute China. The one thing I do know about China, China doesn't want its markets to be disrupted. So it's not in the long game of let's play geopolitical rearrangement because it doesn't fit the narrative. It's not in China's interest. What I find interesting is that there was an attack of an Israeli diplomat in China,
Yeah.
and
And he fought
I
and
wonder
saved
I
himself.
wonder what that was about. But again, look, a lot has happened. I didn't look into it. I didn't think about it too much. Maybe I should. Maybe I should now. But I don't really have. I can't comment on it because I didn't really think it through. So whatever I'm going to say is just going to be kind of like, very, very shallow and really not thought of properly. So I'll pass. I'm sorry.
Look, no, no. Yes, the intellectually honest people say we don't know.
Yeah.
The ones who think they have figured everything out, they say anything and everything under the sun has they have an answer for that. So I actually appreciate it. Now this is, you know, again, this is from a Hindu listener. This person has asked, a general argument against Jews and Hindus is fill in the blanks. What did you expect? You
That's
deserved it,
true.
no
That is
matter what we do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why I think like a lot of people, like I've heard it all. People I say, oh, but because of this, and what about this? And I mean, look, it's like a ball that people like to kind of pass around. And you're always guilty anyway. So a long time ago, I decided to just not care. And I'm like, look, I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna live by the morals that I've chosen, and as ethically as I can. If you don't like it, don't like it. If you want to see something insidious and nefarious in it, knock yourself out. But I'm not. I'm done justifying myself. And the other thing, and I think that you would I think you would agree with me, is I don't believe that we have to be accepted in the sense that we should stop looking for validation. I don't need validation. I don't need the world to tell me that it's okay for me to exist, that it's okay for me to practice my religion or not, that it's okay for me to live according to my culture, that it's okay for me to celebrate my culture. That I don't need that kind of validation. I mean, if people want to celebrate with us, wonderful. If you don't like it, tough luck. I'm not interested. I exist. I'm good. So, people want to get on that train and come with us and benefit, or do business with us, do whatever. Wonderful, we'll do that. If you don't wanna and you want to stay away and criticize us, I don't really care. It's fine because it doesn't change anything. I mean, I don't need people to tell me it's okay to breathe. I don't need people to tell me, oh, it's okay to be you. I know, thank you. I don't need you. I'm okay. And I think that Hindus in the UK, because I can only speak about the UK, have done that tremendously well, where they kind of let it roll in and roll over, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, criticism is criticism, but does it change anything really about you? Not really. Does it speak more about the people doing the criticizing? Absolutely. And so why should we care? Now when it turns to hate crime, then we need to draw a line. But as far as criticism is concerned, I mean, people will say whatever it is that they want to say. I have an issue when they try to organize themselves under a terrorist organization and act on it. Then I have a problem.
Yeah, and nobody needs to remind anyone over here that I mean, Catherine and I have had I don't know how many conversations offline about this. That when we look at the anti-Semitic network and we look at the anti-Hindu network, the organizations,
Mm-hmm.
the players, the individuals in the media, even the cartoonists in the newspapers, they are all the same. It's
Mm-hmm.
a literal 90% plus overlap, till the extent, I don't know if you know about this, Catherine, but the recent cartoon that was published in a newspaper, just a few like a couple of days ago. I forgot the name of the damn newspaper. What the hell was that newspaper? Yeah, The Guardian. They sacked
Yeah.
their cartoonist Steve Bell. Guess what? And I want to show this cartoon for people to understand the level of parallels in anti-Semitism and Hindu hatred. It's like people think this is some grand conspiracy theory. No, you assholes! I'm thinking of writing a serious research paper on this. That's how bad things have become. Like, I reached out to Catherine. I was like, Catherine, you and I should sit down and write this damn thing.
You should
Like,
actually, but
it's
look,
just look at
I
this
think to some
paper.
extent we're giving them a bit too much oxygen. Oh well, oh yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, look
Yeah,
at this. And guess what? This is the same guy who drew this. This is Preeti Patel. Look at
this is this is not just offensive, but the look, I don't like the subtext, the devil's horn. This is horrible. This is it's not, because look, I'm not one, I don't take offense easily. I mean, I think that people, I mean, criticism is healthy, and I think that people should have thick skin anyway, because you can't take offense all the time. That life doesn't owe you that much that you will not get upset sometimes. It's okay, get out of the kitchen if you can't. But there's a line where it's just so nasty and not necessary, and actually doesn't say anything, because it's not a criticism to kind of point the finger to something that needs fixing. It's just I want to hurt you because I can. I want to belittle your culture. I want to dehumanize your community. I don't understand that. I really don't. And also, I just don't understand, like, where does it come from? Like, what if you look at statistics in the UK, for example, in terms of crimes demographic, I don't think that the Hindu community computes anywhere. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly,
you're the
it's
bottom.
just like
You're
you're thinking,
literally,
are you guys even here? Because
yeah.
nothing. I mean, obviously, you're in any community, you're gonna have offenses and violence or whatever. But I'm talking in terms of, like, the grand scale of skin, like,
Percentage.
not even there. It's just like that, crickets. I'm just waiting. And it's insane to me. So you don't represent a threat at all. There's no threat. No, I mean, I'm talking about factual threat, as there's an issue with, I don't know, violence at home, for example, or whatever it may be. Nothing. I can't say the same about certain other communities, but not going to go there. But I don't understand what warrants that kind of hatred, other than the fact that as a community you have done extremely well for yourselves, and that people are
Success.
thinking like there must be a trick. No, it's called hard work, and also community support and solidarity. It does wonder for a community when people support one another and actually try to encourage not just their children but the neighbors' children, and the extended family and the extended community to do better by providing services and being there for each other, and creating a sense of togetherness and uplifting. um it's a shocker, it works. And I mean, if there's a conspiracy theory, that's the one that you need to look at and try to replicate. But no, people think that, oh, there must be a ploy. There's no ploy. It's a model. I think it's a model that works. Go replicate, and if you don't like it, then don't do it, but don't cry when it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, which is why people, the amount of messages I've seen from people on social media that have said, oh, why are the Hindus tweeting so much for the Israelis? Because once again, we get their pain.
No,
We
but
get
even
their
if
pain.
you didn't, even let's say like we didn't know each other and like we don't get each other, whatever. What is wrong with supporting a people that just suffered a terrible,
Yeah,
terrible tragedy?
exactly.
I mean, you would like to think that as a human being living here on Earth, the most natural thing to do would be to extend a hand and say, "I'm sorry. How can we
Hmm.
assist? How can we help you?" And just do you understand like the weird reasoning why people are thinking to themselves, oh, there must be something because they're behaving like normal decent human beings towards a community that has done nothing to deserve such an attack, because you can never deserve such an attack. you know there must be something nefarious about this. It's insane because what it says about society today, and also this implication that in order for me to extend a hand to you, I must have some kind of an interest in doing that humanitarianism doesn't exist, that the fact that I could see your humanity in your suffering and recognize that this is my own, that I'm actually I'm catering to, for them to not see that, it's just like, where is your soul? Did you lose it in the field somewhere? Like, am I missing something? What are you doing? I don't
Exactly.
understand it, and it goes beyond racism, by the way. I think it goes
It
beyond
does.
even sectarianism. It's this notion that in order to act like a human, like a decent human being, there must be an angle. I don't. I personally, I don't understand that.
Yeah,
And I think that it's our duty as people, and not, I'm not speaking as a Jew or even as a woman. It's just on the most on a visceral, I would say, genetic level. You have to stand up for humanity, because otherwise you're denying your own. So extend a hand. If you see pain, address it. Don't walk away. If you see something horrible happen, speak up. Otherwise, people will not speak for you. I
yeah.
mean, it seems so basic. I don't know. I don't know. Those people have been hiding under a rock somewhere, and Hamas was sitting on it. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it was so funny. Like, I was looking at South Asian experts calling out BJP's tweet about George Soros controlling
Oh,
Rahul Gandhi as anti-Semitism, and then the same South Asian experts whining about the Hindus standing up and supporting Israel. I was like, for fuck's sake, decide whether we are anti-Semitic or we are too much of a Jew lover. I mean,
God.
how can the same person accuse us?
I mean, look. I mean, people have accused me of being. What was it? The last insult that I heard is I wasn't just a Zionist. Apparently, I was a pro-Zionist. I was thinking, I don't know what that is, but okay. And they would tell me like, how could you be a Zionist? I was like, how can I not be a Zionist? I'm Jewish. I have to be a Zionist because I know what happens when Israel is not around. And being a Zionist doesn't mean that you agree necessarily politically with any given government, right now in Israel. It just means that you are for Israel as the state. Sometimes I agree with the government, sometimes I don't agree with the government, like everyone else. It's not a statement on my political affiliations, only that I know what happens when Israel is not around, and thank God Israel is around. Because can you imagine what they would have done to us if Israel was not around? I'm talking about the Islamists. Can you imagine
Hmm.
that happened in Israel? Imagine if Israel wasn't around. I don't want to think about it. So, yes, very proud Zionist. And people take offense telling me, how could you? My answer is, how could I not?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. You know what the funny bit is? Like, most people don't understand that the reason Catherine and I get along so well is because we're both secular humanists. Both of us are secular humanists. Like, people think we're some ultra religious. She's an ultra religious Jew, or I'm
oh
an ultra religious
God,
Hindu.
I
They
think
don't get us.
I think I'm a rabbi's nightmare because I don't look. I love my people. I am extremely proud of my roots and my history and where I come from and everything that my people are doing and have done and will continue to do. Extremely proud. Uh, I love Israel. I will defend Israel until there's no breath left in me. So that's me. That being said, I'm not a religious person, but I would defend anyone's right to practice their religion freely and safely to my death. I choose not to, So I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind one day. I don't know. But in the meantime, I'm a happy secular.
Yeah, and which is why Catherine and I get along so well. Is the reason is because I'm exactly like her. Like, I'm not a practicing guy. In fact, my podcast is Cārvāka. I am an open disbeliever, but I still stand up because I know the collective suffering of my community, and I
Hmm.
will always stand up for it. Because if some members of the community did not stand up and fight for themselves, yes, there would. And India is a community that was broken in 1947. We lost a huge chunk of our land, which is why would I want Israel to go through that? Israel does not deserve to go through that. And every time somebody says that oh, Israel is occupying Palestinian land, like, I don't understand, where the hell is the Jewish community supposed to go, is my question.
No, but it's also, it's just factually not true. We're not occupying anything. This is what gets me, is that people keep saying you're a colonial force. Okay, we were. I mean, where? How? Like, explain to me. How can I occupy my own land? We are indigenous to the land. This is not even open for debate. We are indigenous to the land of Israel. Um, but this argument keeps coming back up. I mean, I wouldn't say an argument, because the gentleman was actually quite, reasonable. But we had a bit of a religious debate, about whether or not, because he was arguing that Palestine is Palestine, and I was just like, well, no. I mean, religiously speaking, if you want to talk religion, it's not really. It's Beni Israel, and last time I checked, Beni Israel is not like this kind of distant Camelot. It's real, and it happens to be where Israel sits right now. So anyway, we had this debate, but it's insane to me that even people who do read the scriptures is still, and having this religious line of thinking, or challenging the existence of Israel. I'm like, it's in your book. It's in your book. Read it. I mean, and it's not like it. I'm not telling you that it is true because it's in the book. I'm saying that if your argument is a religious argument, then you need to reference your book, and your book reference Israel. So I don't know what's the problem. But again, hatred is tainted the narrative, and they can't even read.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked this questions, like, how is the two-state solution eventually going to, figure out, and what is the future? Look, Catherine, I have always had sympathy for the people of Palestine. I have never hidden that. You know my views on that. I have always shared it with you, and as a humanist, you feel for them too. Like,
Of course you do.
Catherine, before we wrap up, like, what is the solution for this mess? Like, what Hamas has done again. And listen, Israel is going to respond, and Hamas should be wiped out of planet Earth. I have
Mm.
no problem admitting that. But still, the Palestinian question remains, and the two-state solution or whatever. How is it? What's the future for this region?
Well, no, look, number one, first of all, a solution needs to be found. It's not like, when people are saying, oh, Israel will take it all and it's going to be the end of Palestinians. And no, no, it's not going to happen. Israel doesn't want to genocide on other people. That's not going to happen. But we need to find partners in peace who are genuinely interested in peace. That's number one. Now, when it comes to the solution, what it's going to look like, I don't know, because I think that as far as Israel is concerned, in terms of Israel's willingness to be compassionate, patient, and generous, I don't know. So I think it's going to be, Israel will always be a rational partner, but I don't know about generosity anymore after what happened. So I think that concession will need to happen, not in terms of land necessarily. I'm talking in terms of, whether or not Palestinians would be allowed to have a military, for example, because when we see what happened, when they have a militia, don't know I don't know. So those discussions is to happen. But I would say this: we need to have real partners, and also I do think that the world needs to butt out. It is a Palestinian-Israeli issue. This is not Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, America, France, just kind of like, projecting their own agenda or trying to tell us what to do. No, 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 no. You want to act as a buffer. You want to be, I don't know, act even as a referee, although
Mm-hmm.
maybe in terms of trying to bring, to make sure that reason doesn't leave the room, maybe. maybe, but I think it's a very kind of it's a very regional problem that needs to be solved regionally, and preferably between the two parties involved, because otherwise you're going to start going into, you know, weird tangents, and then again you fanning you know, this those parties who actually make a career out of prolonging negotiation, because they make a lot of money. I mean, Mahmoud Abbas has made billions out of this. You know, Hamas, the guy from Hamas, all the leadership is sitting outside of Gaza, in Qatar, in Egypt, in Lebanon, wherever. They don't care. They actually don't care. They're making a lot of money. They don't want this to be sorted, because if tomorrow morning Gaza became independent, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? You know, if they have what they want, what are they going to do? Because then they're going to have to rule. They're going to have to administrate. They're going to have to do all that. They don't want to do this. They want to kill. They want to. What they want to do is commit an act of genocide completely against the Jewish people in Israel and just wipe us out. And then after, they will be like, well, that's it. You know, you do whatever. They're not in the business of fixing. They're not in the business of building. They want to kill and destroy. So yeah, no, they don't want the problem to be solved. And it is why, by the way, they've always refused to find you know, to actually develop Gaza, because they could then, you know, perpetuate this notion that, you know, Gaza was in such a dire strait because of Israel, when Israel is not administrating anything, is not occupying anything. We're not in there since 2005. So they had over a decade to build stuff. They have done nothing. They have built rockets that they're good at, but that's it. So, you know, what happens next is really, it's up to Palestinians, really, because Israelis have always been ready to make peace. So it's really up to Palestinians. Palestinians have systematically, when I say Palestinians, I'm talking about the leadership, not the people, because in my mind, they have been betrayed time and time again. The leadership needs to just stop and make a deal. Make a deal. Ask your people, have a referendum, do anything, but just do something different, because this is not working and your people are suffering and they shouldn't have to suffer. People deserve, look, anyone, I don't care what you are, Palestinians, Israeli, it doesn't matter. You deserve a future. People deserve to live a dignified life, and I would say, you know, a right to be able to happen, to not to be happy, because you don't have a right to be happy. I think it's, you know, it's, I mean, I don't know what happiness is, but anyway, but they have a right to live a dignified life, and to feel safe within the confine of their borders. There you go.
Yeah. Catherine, before we wrap it up, there was an organization where people can contribute to. Could you tell us about that too?
Yes. So I'm, because there's a lot of, you know, fundraisers going on for Israel. And so if anyone is interested in donating, so I'm compiling, it's not me, it's, you know, the government and other organizations are compiling a list of charities that have been vetted. We're also running, you know, separate fundraisers to be helping very specific causes, mainly children, people that have been affected by what they witness. There's a lot of psychological trauma that we're trying to address, to make sure that we support the families of the victim, trying to make sure that we are supporting the family of the hostages, that we're doing everything we can for Israel and also the IDF. And so if anyone is interested in donating or maybe offering help by way of supplies, please follow me on Twitter. My messages are open. So feel free to drop me a line and I will direct you to, because we're setting up a page, so it's taking longer than I thought. And I will keep you up to date and I will send you all the links, and, you know, you could decide whether or not you want to give. If, again, Israel is quite short of certain, it's not like the money is missing necessarily for the IDF, it's the sourcing of certain things, because everything happens so quickly. So if anyone wants to, you know, to donate that way and just send stuff to Israel, again, I could direct you to the people who are organizing this, because obviously I'm not doing that because I'm doing other things. But yeah, a lot of good people have actually mobilized and doing a lot. I mean, look, there's a gentleman, we don't know his name, who sat for hours in New York at the counter of an airline, and he paid for 250 tickets for IDF reservists to go home, and he doesn't want to be named. And he put his credit card, and it was 250 tickets. I mean, the generosity. has been absolutely incredible. So everyone is pulling together and doing, what we can individually and together as a community. And I'm very proud of it. Very proud of what is going on. And also, I mean, countless people have stepped in and helping also. So it's been wonderful to see that, we are not alone in this horror, that there's a lot of very good people out there from all over the world. Iranians have been absolutely incredible in their support. Those in the diaspora, those back in Iran, have sent countless messages and good wishes, and offered their condolences. And it meant a lot. It meant a lot to see that beyond all the hate and the political crap, people could see that it's today wasn't the time to be hateful, that they could witness the horror that Israel had to face, and they could understand that, if nothing was to be done, they could be next. So it made me feel, I wouldn't say better, but it gave me a sense that, in this horror there's still a light. So I'm going to concentrate on that.
Yeah, so guys, when I get the link, I will also tweet the link out on my Twitter handle, and I will urge all of you to. So if you're listening to this on the audio platform, in the description, Catherine's Twitter handle is there. Go follow her and keep checking out her tweets. The YouTuber, same thing for you. It is in the description of this video. You can go and check it out. Similarly for Facebook too, you can go and check it out in the description, and you'll see Catherine's Twitter handle. You can go and follow her, and you can get the details. I definitely would request on behalf of at least the Cārvāka podcast, that if you can, please support the communities in Israel. I think it's our moral responsibility. I will try to do it in my as soon as I get all the links. I'll start by putting my money where my mouth is, and I will do it myself. And Catherine, I know it's a tough time, but once again, thank you for coming. And I just want to say on behalf of everybody that I know who reached out to me when they knew I was going to talk to you, they told me to tell you that tell Catherine that we stand behind the Jewish community, and we will always stand behind the Jewish community.
Thank you, and thank you everyone again for your shows, for your show of friendship, and I would say your moral standing, your integrity. It's very nice to see. It makes us feel less alone, and I'm thinking that together we can win this. There's no question in my mind that Islamism and hate would be defeated. So here's to that.
Yeah, we will win. And I always say this, Catherine and I, in fact, this conversation happens many times offline, that sometimes I feel bad for the average Muslim also in this entire process, because Islamism, the biggest victim of Islamism is the average Muslim.
Yeah.
They suffer the most. And to all my Muslim friends, I'm there for you, brothers, too. I'm there for you. To all my Muslim brothers and sisters, I'm there for you. I feel your pain too. But you have to call out Islamism. Like this platform, I've had conversations with Catherine, but Catherine knows I reach out to a Shadi Hamid, and I always try to give a Palestinian perspective also, and I try to say as balanced as possible. But on this, what happened in Israel on that day, I don't know, something in my heart broke. And I was like, there is no justification of this. There is just no justification. We could see this in the condemnation from the Indian Prime Minister also, because he was one of the first world leaders to call it what it was. It was a terrorist attack. You see CBC News Canada, the weasels inside the CBC News.
The BBC refuses to call Hamas. They call them Hamas militants as opposed to Hamas terrorists, which is despicable. Yeah. And they say that they want to do this to maintain neutrality. This is not neutrality. It's bias. It's prejudice against the Jewish community. And for me, an act of anti-Semitism. It's actually quite despicable in the sense that they're trying to cover it under a veneer of morality. Yeah. And I think that is quite sick and perverse. This kind of intellectual gymnastics. I'm not impressed by the BBC. But again, look, I do believe that you reap what you sow, and I think there will be a time of reckoning. Again, I'm not advocating violence. I'm talking about intellectual reckoning in the sense that they will be held accountable. And I think that society will deal with them, because they're
Yeah.
going to have to, I think they're going to have to go. They're going to have to rethink the way that it works, because this is not a public service. This is propaganda of I mean, who are they working for is actually my question. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I'm not a moral relativist. Some cultures are better than other cultures. Israeli culture is a superior culture. Indian culture is a superior culture. Yes, Indian culture is better than Pakistani culture. Look at my eyes when I say this, ladies and gentlemen. Indian culture is better than Pakistani culture. Israeli culture is better than Palestinian culture. Look at my. This doesn't mean all Palestinians are bad or all Pakistanis are bad, but overall, our cultures are better. Western culture overall is better. And you cannot be a moral relativist and say, oh, all cultures are equal. They're not. Some cultures just suck. The culture of Islamism sucks. And I'm very clear on which side I am on this subject. You can call me what you want to call. My conscience is clear. This podcast has stood up for the underdog every time. I'm always going to stand up for suffering of Palestinians also. But it doesn't mean that if, when a horrific attack like this stands, I have to engage in some sort of whataboutism. I'm not
Mhm.
going to engage in any whataboutism. This is wrong. I'm with the Israeli community. I'm with the Jewish community. I'm going to end it over here. And this podcast was meant to be heterodox. It will remain heterodox. Once again, go and follow Catherine. Support people like Catherine, because we need good scholars, and there are scholars like Catherine who do good work, and that's what this podcast was made for, to reaching out to good people who do good work. So keep supporting this podcast, whether on the audio platform, whether on YouTube, whether on Facebook, or wherever you guys are. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste, take care, bye.